欢迎收看今天文茜的世界报欧洲版。在俄乌战争的时刻，很多人看到的是西方联合一致对俄罗斯的制裁。这制裁呢，除了金融的制裁，最重要的是它石油跟天然气，因为那是俄罗斯主要的外汇来源。而第一年2022年非常的成功，到2023年则开始出现了漏洞。根据英国独立报独家消息的报道，现在欧洲27个国家，欧盟有27个国家里头有20个国家经过他们的调查，向印度购买石油。可是印度根本不产石油吗？为什么会向印度买石油呢？因为印度是美国特别豁免他们，印度说我太穷了，我没有能力参加你的制裁，所以我仍然要从俄罗斯买到石油，我仍然要从俄罗斯买到天然气。由于美国的印太战略给予了印度特殊的地位，印度在这个时刻就得到了美国点头的豁免权。于是欧洲这些聪明的国家就向印度买石油。欧洲现在呢，向印度买的石油里头，你很难想象它的价格远比它跟美国买的石油价格要低太多。而印度在这里头的角色是什么？现在俄罗斯出口石油40%到印度，它怎么可能需要那么多石油呢？事实上是它把这些石油经过一些简单的提炼，就卖给了欧洲总共20个国家。
An embarrassing fact for the EU. The bloc is Russia's biggest customer of liquefied natural gas, buying over half of the country's supply in the first 7 months of the year. That's worth over €5 billion, potentially sustaining the Kremlin's war chest.
For Russia, it means that European Union and countries which basically are purchasing Russian gas, basically they're helping to finance Russia's budget and at the same moment finance Russia's aggression and war against Ukraine.
制裁只是说说而已吗？俄乌战争开打迈入第2年，欧洲人终究认清了一个事实：想尽快摆脱对俄罗斯能源的依赖，比想象中还要困难。
The EU has already sanctioned imports of Russian oil and coal, greatly reducing the quantities coming in. Experts we've spoken to say that until the EU decides to sanction gas, those imports are unlikely to go down.
In Brussels, the European Commission says it wants LNG purchases from Russia to end, but says overall gas imports, LNG and pipeline form, are down from 40% before the invasion to 15% now.
You know, some companies are tied into long-term contracts, and we've encouraged them to bring those to a close as soon as possible and to not renew those. So yeah, I mean, the political message from the Commission is very clear. The sooner we can get rid of the Russian LNG imports, the better, but that will take a little bit of time still.
确实，俄罗斯中断了从管道输送天然气，但它却以液化天然气形态进入了欧洲的千家万户。这也是俄国少数未遭欧盟制裁的能源项目。根据非政府组织全球见证的分析报告，2023年前7个月，俄罗斯对欧盟国家的液化天然气出口量与2021年同期相比增加了40%，创下历史新高。
Most of the Russian LNG entering Europe enters ports in Belgium, France and Spain, but it doesn't all stay in Europe.
The cargo is moved from one ship either to another ship or to a storage site in the port, and then is dispatched somewhere else, either in Europe or towards Asian markets or the Middle East. It depends.
Much of the gas stays in Europe, though, and is delivered to other EU nations. Pressure has mounted on European port terminals to stop accepting Russian LNG imports. Fluxys, which runs the terminal in Belgium's Zeebrugge port, told DW they're based on a principle of open access as an essential service, meaning they can't legally deny any client access, even Russian shipments.
类似的情节也发生在高调喊着要制裁俄罗斯的美国。
Global Witness found between January and September of this year, the U.S. imported 30 million barrels of fuel from refineries running on Russian oil. In total, that crude arrived in at least 13 cities in 7 states. Among the companies importing that oil, BP, Sunoco, and Shell.
American companies are still linked to this revenue chain, funneling money back to the Kremlin.
This is relatively a drop in the bucket for Russian exports and revenue, and a drop in the bucket for American consumption. So why is this important?
It doesn't make any sense to support Ukraine and the Ukrainian people the way we have on the one hand, and also allow this revenue flow to continue.
We never anticipated this type of circumvention.
The story begins in Siberia, which holds the majority of Russia's oil reserves. Russia produces 9.6 million barrels of crude oil per day, its single most important source of revenue. And it sells that oil to countries outside the US and European Union, including China, the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, and India, home to the world's largest oil refinery, the sprawling Jamnagar refining complex. Before the war in Ukraine, Jamnagar imported almost no Russian crude. Today, Global Witness found about 1/3 of its monthly crude imports are Russian. At Jamnagar, the Russian crude is blended with other foreign crude and refined into gasoline, diesel, and other products that can be legally bought by American companies. It's then shipped with vessels like the Balzani through the Red Sea, into the Suez Canal, the Mediterranean and Atlantic Ocean, and in this case, New York's Upper Bay.
After the invasion of Ukraine, the U.S. banned the direct import of Russian oil. However, other countries that then started buying that oil can legally refine it and sell it to the U.S. That's the refining loophole, and that's what we're trying to change.
英国独立报报道直指印度就是欧美继续购买俄罗斯石油的引污者。去年欧盟27国中有20国就经由印度购买了俄罗斯石油。
But Western sanctions on Russian fuel worked in India's favor. Within months, cheaper Russian oil began entering India. By the end of May 2023, Russia became the biggest oil supplier, displacing traditional West Asian suppliers like Iraq and Saudi Arabia.
独立报分析克普勒市场数据后报道指出，印度去年成为俄罗斯最大的原油进口国，平均每天进口175万桶。较2022年成长140%，完全不遮掩购买俄罗斯石油的意愿。与此同时，欧盟从印度进口的成品油猛增了115%，较2022年每日11万1000桶增加到2023年每日23万1800桶，这是过去7年来最高的数字，也可能是有史以来最高。
俄副总理诺瓦克去年底表示，俄过去对印度的能源供应几乎没有，但在2年内对印度的能源供应总份额也达到40%左右。俄能源部长舒利吉诺夫去年12月在接受俄媒采访时表示，俄罗斯石油和天然气行业2023年经受住制裁压力，并满足了能源市场需求。
克普勒分析师史密斯表示，欧美一直在走钢索，既要减少对克里姆林宫的资助，又要确保有足够的俄国能源供应全球市场，以避免价格飙升，造成西方经济损失。但无论如何，俄罗斯都将继续保持作为顶级石油供应国的地位。面对地缘政治动态演变与全球经济不确定的未来。